Nick Guzman says Geno, DK, Tariq Woolen, Spoon will be all pro this year. Mark my words. Boy, you got Reek and Spoon as all pro in that secondary. Look out. Look out. But that's where I do come with Reek. Not much like with Cross last year. There's a bit of a narrative with Woolen of bad year last year. Wasn't bad. It's just that there were good parts to it, and there were some parts that were not as good. Definitely there's some room for growth there. And I do always come back with Reek to say, understandable, a guy that just moved over to cornerback 3 years ago to the position. 4 years ago, he was tackling nobody. 3 years ago, he needed to learn to tackle. Let's give that guy a little bit of time to maybe kind of figure that out. And maybe he just never does. But we have seen in a guy like Trayvon Diggs, who was miserable as a tackler coming out of Alabama. I can't tell you how bad of a tackler he was on the tape. And it was right there in the first year or two with him as well. And it's gotten a bit better. He's been able to improve it. But much like with Tariq Woolen, you had in Diggs a guy that was transitioning from the wide receiver position to the cornerback position late in his college career. And so you give him a little bit more of that room, I think, to develop that part. But I like your prediction, Nick, and I hope you're right. He says, I feel a lot of downplay from Reek and Cross was just coaching inefficiency that had teams knowing the play before the snap. I think it doesn't help them. Predictability on both sides of the ball was a big part of what you have to feel like holds back both of those sides of the ball. I don't remember any point in time anybody saying, look how the Seahawks offense was confusing their opponents out there for the past couple of years, and certainly not something that we said about the defense. And when it comes to Reek, yeah, you know, when you watch a lot of the completions given up against him, that he does give up, and he does give up a lot of completions, but I can show you a ton of completions that were given up against Reek last year that see him in off coverage, dropping to bail depth post-snap, looking very much like he's in cover 3. And even when you're running cover 3 man match, which is you run cover 3, but if you can be smart enough as a corner, you get to man match it. If the guy runs an over route or runs the slant, you can jump the route if you can recognize it quick enough. But it's a very hard thing. It's like the gap and a half crap on a defensive line. It's very hard to do because you're asking a guy to do two different things at once a little bit. Stay on top, but be aggressive. Stay on top, but be aggressive. I can kind of do one or the other. And when you see a lot of the completions against Reek that were had last year, it does come about on those plays where he's dropping to depth, they hit him underneath, and he comes up and usually makes the tackle in those plays. And the struggling in the tackle spots tended to be in more of the run game, getting off blocks, making the tackle when he needed to do it. You know, he'd be kind of the last line of defense at times and couldn't get it done. But certainly neither were bad last year on that point of it, God's gang. And it could be the case with Cross too. I know with the offense, the lack of motion, it seemed like teams at times, especially in that Ravens game, they knew what was coming. KJ Wright spoke about this a lot, and I think he wasn't BSing. And I think he took a lot of heat from Brian Carroll from saying this stuff, but teams knew what was coming. He knew he'd watch the Hawks offense on a Sunday and he could know what the play was going to be. And if that's going to be the case where play after play after play, a guy sitting on his couch who's done playing the last couple of years, but can do that, I think you're in a troubled state. So it's certainly something that would impact the players. How much we'll see this year. But these things are going to be part of those advantages I talk about, and there's many of them on this table that are going to be no longer left on the table. They're going to be picked up and they're going to be utilized. You're good in man coverage, guess what? You're going to be in man coverage a lot. You were super predictable before, guess what? Now you're going to be as unpredictable as absolutely possible. That will be at the forefront. And this may bring about, as we talk about as the theme of this show right now, God's gang, this is part of the things that bring about the potentiality for this upcoming season to be a season where your Seattle Seahawks actually contend. Not just good, not just a little bit better than last year, but actually contend. A team that's willing to run to the outside edges, a team that's willing to use fly sweeps, a team that's willing to target the middle of the football field, a team that's willing to run stack fronts, a team that's willing to blitz, a team that's willing to disguise their coverages from what you see pre to post snap, a team that's willing to use pre-snap motion at the forefront and motions and adjustments on the offensive line prior to the snap in particular in order to get the defense to show their hand. All of these little built-in advantages to be picked up upon that aren't hard things to onboard. To go from being a 32nd, 28th, 29th blitz rate team to being a 16th blitz rate team, that doesn't take the coach doing a lot of brilliant things. It just takes a willingness to blitz a little bit more, a willingness to be a little bit more risky on what you have going on in the back end, not being as protective in your nature, risk adverse in your nature. Does this bring about the quick returns at that point? Does this take this team to a place where they can truly come back the next year and provide contention? Maybe. And if it happens, it will be on the back of utilizing these things that have long been sort of cold on the Seahawks advantages, you know? So it's like the movies where you see the guy go and he's about to go into battle. This is great for the theme of my thumbnail. It's going into battle, right? This is one of the, it's a stock movie trope we've all seen many times. He's coming up and he's usually in a hotel room and for some reason he's laid out all of his weapons on the bed and he's trying to pick the weapons he wants. And it's like in recent years, we're sort of going, okay, I'll take the shotty and I'll take the Beretta and then we go. And then there's all these others that are still left there. There's a whole rig of ammo here. There's a rocket launcher over here and we're out. And you go, dude, why don't we take all that? If it's just here for us to pick it, we'll just carry it with us. We got a car. We just keep it in the car. I think this coaching staff is going to do a lot more of that, God's gang. I think the only way for Woolen to get to an all-pro season is he just has to have an incredible amount of interceptions. He'd have to have like 9 interceptions, I think, to get to kind of an all-pro space. Sort of like Deron Bland last year, where you have so many picks that just it's undeniable not to give you that nod. I think the tackling stuff is always a little bit of what will be an issue there with Woolen. He is a bigger guy at the cornerback position. So he's got a little bit of some natural size that can work in his favor to become a better tackler. And he is new to the position. But some of being an all-pro or second-team all-pro would probably also hinder on him making tackling not a huge detriment of his game. That it at least gets up to somewhat of a kind of a maybe middling state. And with his upper-level coverage abilities, that would be enough to then propel him. But if he's going to tackle at the current state that he's been at the past couple of years, Mythic, that's too much of an inhibiting factor because teams can attack it, they can go after it, and you see him sometimes susceptible to some of that stuff. And even going back recently and watching some of the tape as I have on our defense last year, there's just some snaps there where he's not getting off blocks, he's not putting out the right amount of effort on tackles, and that stuff's got to improve with it. The want, the will, along with the technique has got to take a step forward. But the coverage skills, the taking the ball away, the stuff that's the most important for the cornerback to do, he's got that stuff down pat. There's no worries on that part of it.